The government buys the broadcasting rights for the Paris Olympics and Paralympics, and the public will be able to watch the events for free. The chief executive says the government will make further considerations about the solid waste charging scheme after its trial run. And Israel's prime minister says there is a date for the ground incursion into Rafah in southern Gaza. Hello and welcome to TVB News. The government has bought the broadcasting rights for this year's Paris Olympics and Paralympics. Chief Executive John Lee said the public will be able to watch the huge sporting events on free-to-air television this summer. Mimo Singhai reports.
The last Summer Olympics took place in Tokyo 3 years ago, and the previous administration bought the rights to broadcast the events in Hong Kong. Even though the Tokyo Olympics took place during the COVID pandemic, local residents demonstrated huge enthusiasm, with the Hong Kong team achieving impressive results. And the government decided to buy the broadcasting rights again for the upcoming Paris Olympics and Paralympics. Speaking ahead of today's Executive Council meeting, Chief Executive John Lee made the announcement and explained why.
特區政府已經成功購入巴黎奧運同埋殘奧嘅。
We would like to make it possible for members of the public in Hong Kong to watch various games at the Paris Olympics and the Paralympics, and they can cheer for Hong Kong athletes. Hong Kong people's love for sports grows.
TVB released a statement saying it welcomes the government's move, adding it will provide viewers with the most complete coverage of the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. Do residents like the arrangement?
I'm not going to be in Paris, and I have a comfortable sofa, and I can watch it in comfort in Hong Kong. That's great.
I think it was a good decision, to be fair, because I think it will bring sport into Hong Kong. Like, sport's already big in Hong Kong as it is, like everyone's always out and about, so I think it was a good decision to buy it and watch it now. It inspires young children to also take part in the sport.
Kenny Fogg, the lawmaker who represents the sports sector, said he is pleased with the news. With the broadcasting rights, he believes it will help boost the morale of local athletes who will take part in the Olympics.
You know, Paris is quite far away. Maybe a lot of Hong Kong fans may not be able to go to Paris to watch the competition in person. But our athletes, knowing that our Hong Kong fans are with them through a direct broadcast and through the television, I'm sure this will give them extra confidence when they compete for Hong Kong, China. Having, you know, the broadcasting rights and having people who can reach and see Olympic events firsthand, whether at home or in the malls or in restaurants, this will actually invigorate people's interest in sports.
The lawmaker also hopes the government can buy the broadcasting rights to individual sports in the future, such as swimming, to encourage sports enthusiasm among local youth. Mimo Singhai, TVB News.
With the demonstration scheme for the municipal solid waste charging scheme operating for just over a week, some voices in the city are calling for the measure to be either delayed or put on hold. Chief Executive John Lee stressed the government will make further considerations about the implementation of the scheme after the completion of its demonstration phase. Timothy Lee tells us more.
The municipal solid waste charging demonstration scheme is currently implemented at 14 designated locations. But a number of problems have already arisen. Some residents of the selected sites said they did not receive the designated garbage bags even after waiting for several days, while others complained about the lack of food waste recycling bins. This, as Chief Executive John Lee emphasized the government has no plans to put the scheme on hold at present.
On the waste charging scheme, we are clearly telling our people that the waste charging scheme is part of our law now. As we implement the law, we're thinking how we should roll out the scheme. So we launched the trial run.
He stressed the demonstration phase must be completed before authorities plan their next step.
We hope that through collecting data. And through the implementation of trial run, we can consult on participants on their views of the scheme. We will conduct questionnaire survey. We'll also listen to other people's views, including members of the LegCo.
This afternoon, Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration Warner Chuk, who is coordinating the scheme, announced questionnaire surveys will be conducted at the 14 designated locations. Earlier, former Vice Chairman of the All China Federation of Returned Overseas Chinese, Lo Man-tun, wrote a newspaper article advocating for the delay or halt of the charging scheme. Meanwhile, former Secretary for Environment Wong Kam-seng said discussions related to similar recycling measures have historically been held between the government and the community. He noted the waste blueprint initially proposed under former Chief Executive Cheng Chi-hua's administration took years of public consultation before it was implemented. Wong urged residents to support the latest measure to help the SAR reduce the amount of waste and transform into a greener society. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
The national security trial of former media tycoon Jimmy Lai entered its 56th day today. In the West Kowloon court, accomplice witness Andy Lee continued to testify. He said in July 2020, shortly after the Hong Kong national security law came into effect, he and an ally felt their work had reached a bottleneck. So they wanted to find some pro-Hong Kong independence figures or people who were overseas to set up a so-called Hong Kong government in exile. They approached several such figures, but nobody wanted to do it. Britain, the US, and Australia said on Monday they are considering working with Japan through their AUKUS security pact. That's despite U.S. export control restrictions that challenge the existing partners' efforts to counter China's power in the Indo-Pacific region. This comes with the U.S. President Joe Biden set to host the leaders of Japan and the Philippines this week to boost economic and defense ties and discuss issues such as disputes in the South China Sea. Daniel Rao tells us more.
In a joint statement published by the British government, the UK, US and Australia said recognising Japan's strengths and its close bilateral defence partnerships with all three countries, we are considering cooperation with Japan on AUKUS Pillar 2 advanced capability projects. The so-called second pillar of AUKUS is focused on delivering advanced capabilities and sharing technologies across a range of areas, including quantum computing, undersea hypersonic artificial intelligence and cyber technology. The statement said AUKUS members had long been clear on their intent to involve other countries in Pillar 2. It added the members would take into account factors such as technological innovation, financing, industrial strength, ability to adequately protect sensitive data and information, and impact on promoting peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region. However, Pillar 2 of AUKUS already faces headwinds due to US restrictions on sharing technological secrets with Australia and Britain, two of Washington's most trusted partners. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese also downplayed reports that Japan could soon join the AUKUS Security Pact. Albanese praised Japan as a close partner, but said there were no plans to add a fourth member. In Beijing, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning said China opposes exclusionary circles formed by certain countries for bloc confrontations that threaten peace and stability. She said the AUKUS plans will intensify the arms race in the Asia-Pacific region and undermine regional peace and stability. This comes with US President Joe Biden set to host the leaders of Japan and the Philippines this week to boost economic and defense ties and discuss issues such as disputes in the South China Sea. Dan Rao, TVB News.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says there is a date for the ground incursion into Rafah. The withdrawal from Khan Yunis has allowed Israeli forces to regroup and focus on the Hamas stronghold in southern Gaza. There is still opposition to the plan, which Israel says is necessary to destroy the enemy. David Garrett reports.
Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu confidently setting out a plan. Netanyahu confirmed two main points. Fresh talks are going on in Egypt to try to bring about a new period of peace in his war with Hamas. He also said victory requires entry into Rafah and the elimination of the terrorists there. It will happen. There is a date. These people are fully behind Netanyahu, unlike many of the recent protests against Netanyahu's handling of the war, a failure to compromise on his offensive to help get some hostages released. These flag-waving supporters think going into Rafah and pursuing Hamas is the best way forward. They think critics of Netanyahu don't understand.
Instead of telling the international community to place pressure on Hamas to release the hostages, they're placing pressure on Netanyahu and our government. We didn't start the war, they did, okay? They murdered 1,200 of our people.
Israel has its critics at home and abroad. This is the devastation in Khan Yunis following the Israeli troop withdrawal. Will Rafah soon look like this? With Netanyahu confirming Rafah is still in Israel's sights and more than 1 million Palestinians sheltering there, world leaders have urged Netanyahu not to go after Hamas with such force in Rafah, fearing a humanitarian catastrophe. A deal to get a ceasefire coupled with Hamas releasing hostages might be the only way to stop it. Netanyahu's main political opposition in Israel spoke with US Secretary of State Antony Blinken as Washington tries to put more pressure on Israel's Prime Minister to back away.
So, a hostage deal is doable. It is a difficult deal. This is a deal we might not like, but it's doable, and therefore it needs to be made.
But it will take two sides to make a deal happen, and Hamas says Israel's proposal sent through mediators Egypt and Qatar does not meet any of the demands of Palestinian factions. France says possible sanctions may need to be imposed on Israel to open more aid crossings. Foreign Minister Stéphane Séjourné told a radio programme that multiple levers of influence must be used. David Garrett, TVB News.
China's Minister of Commerce says the rapid development of Chinese electric vehicle manufacturers is a result of constant tech innovations, well-established supply chain systems, and full market competition, not subsidies. Wang Wentao made the statement at a roundtable meeting in Paris during his visit to France. The meeting brought together more than 10 industry representatives who provided insights into the current situation of Chinese EV makers in Europe. Wang highlighted that Chinese EV companies have achieved competitive strength through their own efforts instead of relying on subsidies. He said the accusations of overcapacity by the US and Europe are groundless. Still ahead, floods putting thousands of people at risk in Russia's Ural region. A number 3 alarm fire raging in a subsidized housing project in Hongshui-Kyu. And the Diploma of Secondary Education written exams now underway. Welcome back. Floods are threatening Russia's southern Kurgan region, putting more than 19,000 people's lives at risk after a dam burst. Unprecedented flooding has already displaced thousands of people in part of the Ural region. Protesters took to the streets of Orsk, calling for compensation as floodwaters damaged thousands of homes. And parts of Orenburg may be flooded in the next 24 hours as water levels in the Ural and Samara rivers are set to rise by 5 to 40 centimeters. Tracy Furness has more.
This is the city of Orsk. Buildings submerged after Europe's third largest river burst through a dam. Some 10,000 people, including 7,000 from Orsk, have been forced to evacuate the region as floodwaters are rising. Some of the worst flooding in decades have hit a string of regions in the Ural Mountains and Siberia, alongside neighboring Kazakhstan in recent days. The mayor of Orenburg took to the airwaves telling residents absolutely everyone who lives in the flood area must leave their houses. Don't postpone the evacuation. The situation will only get worse in the upcoming 2 days. Hundreds of angry residents in the city of Orsk gathered outside a government building in a rare protest on Monday, chanting, "Putin, help us." They also called for compensation after floodwaters ruined their homes. News reports say the governor of the Orenburg region promised compensation of 10,000 rubles a month, or around $108 for 6 months for those forced from their homes due to flooding. The total damage from the flood is estimated at 21 billion rubles or $227 million. A criminal probe has been launched to investigate suspected construction violations that may have caused the dam to break. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Former Kuomintang Chairman Ma Ying-jeou continued his visit in Beijing today. This morning, the former Taiwan leader took a tour of the Badaling section of the Great Wall. He was accompanied by the Deputy Director of the Taiwan Affairs Office, Pan Xiangzhang. He took photos and sang songs with a number of students. Ma arrived at Peking University in the afternoon, marking the second occasion of him interacting with students during his current trip. He was invited by some youngsters to participate in Tai Chi while visiting the Weiming Lake at the university. Ma later spoke at a forum where he stressed his hope that young people on both sides of the Taiwan Strait can strive for peace. Around 200 workers were evacuated after a number 3 alarm fire broke out at a construction site in Hengshui-kyu. The blaze has been raging for more than 5 hours, with fire services personnel noting that a tower crane at the site is unstable. Smoke blanketed much of the construction site, affecting some nearby housing estates, including Sheffield Villas and Hung Fuk Estate. The fire started at the work site on Hung Nga Road, where some 900 subsidized housing units are being built by the Hong Kong Housing Society. Police were alerted to the blaze by the construction site manager at around 1:30 p.m., who said an acetylene cylinder had caught fire. The Diploma of Secondary Education written examinations started today. The Hong Kong Examinations and Assessment Authority said about 85% of the GSE candidates were able to use the app Check-in Smart to self-register upon arriving at examination venues. The rest required help from DSE's supervisors. The first written examination of this year's DSE was visual arts. Only 3,800 students took the exam for this subject out of the 50,000 DSE candidates. Students are required to self-register by using the Check-in Smart app after arriving at the examination venues. Some students said the new rule makes them nervous because some technical issues may arise when using the app. That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.